Well, it's like Jung says, you experience the other than yourself experiencing you. You get to be like almost out of body in a way in those experiences. You get to have an expanded view, like you said,
It
of
can
life and
dissolve
yourself.
inner conflict and reconnect us with wholeness,
Mm.
offering insight into the deeper self, the self with capital S, right? That, I mean, that is really, if you think about what was the purpose of meditation, or what is the purpose of meditation, yoga, what is the purpose of medicinal plants and ritualistic psychedelic plants? It is for this transcendent integration that reveals the self to you in a very direct way. That's why people seek it out and have continued to seek it out.
Hello, welcome to our next episode of Soul Sessions. I am Debra Maldonado,
And I'm Dr. Rob.
and we are here to finalize our series on emotions. And today we are talking about peak experiences. We'll talk about Maslow and how he talked about them in his 1964 book. And then also what that means for you and your life. And you could start thinking about some peak experiences you had. As you're thinking of them, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast if you are listening to us on one of the podcast services, or if you're watching us on YouTube on the video version, please click the link in the corner and make sure you subscribe to our channel.
Yeah,
All right. So, Rob, what are peak
I
experiences?
know. Well,
Is it
I,
climbing to the top of the mountain and going, yeah?
that's what it's about, right? Jumping up and down. No.
Mm,
Yeah. So let's talk about Maslow so we can get
mhm,
a kind of a background on him. So he's considered a humanistic psychologist. And humanistic psychologists were very much into kind of moving beyond the traditional psychoanalysis of the time and also beyond the behaviorism of the time, which was very these two opposing camps at each other's throats, kind of. And the humanistic psychologists, for a while, they were called the third force because here was something different. They weren't behaviorists and they weren't psychoanalysts. They were something different.
and they really didn't work with the unconscious, right? They were more kind of human experiences on a conscious level?
That's a good question. There was a few people that were into transcendental kind of psychology and existential
Mhm.
questions, so they delved into it in their own way, not
Okay,
the traditional psychoanalysis
okay.
of Freud and Jung. In other words, they were deep. They weren't just on the surface like the behaviorists.
The behavior is just motivate yourself.
Yeah, exactly. They were deep. They brought all the power of philosophy and the power of literature into the mix to say we're human beings, and like the Renaissance, the idea was that we as human beings, it's up to us to make our destiny on the planet.
Would you say like his idea, well, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is there's layers of, survival and then the needs to, have a family and the needs to be belong in a community. And then the highest is self-actualization. He's the one who came up with that term or coined that term. And so it is sort of a spiritual
Yeah.
psychology too, because humans have spiritual religious tendencies.
Yes, it was very much like a humanistic spirituality. So it didn't point to a deity somewhere else. It pointed to human beings in their capacity to be compassionate towards each other, to generate love and
Kinda like
altruism.
higher states kinda thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wanna describe the, peak experience as the definition. They're rare, intense moments of heightened awareness, unity, and joy. Times when individuals feel fully alive and at one with themselves, others, and the universe. They're characterized with feelings of awe, timelessness, loss of ego boundaries, and a profound sense of meaning. And they could he considered them the moments of the highest happiness and fulfillment, integral to his vision of self-actualization. So that's a term. So if you had that experience, most of us had a peak
Yeah,
experience in
sure.
our life, even if we didn't know it at the time what it was, that moment where time stops and you feel this sense of oneness. Your egos, it's not about you, it's something greater than you. It's like a transpersonal experience.
Absolutely. And they're indescribable essentially.
Mm.
We can't really do them justice. I always remember that movie Contact, where she gets to travel in this interdimensional machine of some kind. And she says they should have sent a poet because I can't describe any of this. It's just beyond words. It's so beautiful and transcendent that, you can't really put words to it. But yeah, we all kind of know what it means. It's this ability, this, like you say, time stands still, or you have a flash of insight about yourself and your purpose in life, or you feel connected to nature in profound, mysterious ways. That's why a lot of people are seeking ayahuasca and psychedelics, because it gives them a chance at those peak experiences. It's not
Mm.
guaranteed, right? But it gives them a chance at those peak
But we can
experiences.
have them naturally without intervention or
Yeah, of
doing
course.
that
You
as well.
think about love. Women talk about their having a child, or
Mm.
that that experience of holding the baby in their hands. All of those are peak experiences.
And so why do they matter for us to have them? But what is the reason why we should pay attention to this for our own growth?
Yeah,
Instead of just waiting for them to happen, I'm like, "Oh, that was a peak experience. Okay, go back to work on Monday."
I know. It seems to reset the mind and put it in its rightful place.
Almost like it's natural state.
Yeah,
I know Swami Tyagananda, one of our guru guys in Vedanta, he talks about the natural mind being that natural mind of bliss, and that what we experience is an unnatural mind, and most of the time that anxiety and stress and busyness, and there's a natural mind that is always there, just present, but we can't access it because everything else is so noisy.
yeah, yeah. And it's becoming more, or it appears anyway to me, to be more rare these days, that human beings experience this connection with the universe, with
Mm.
nature, with each other. Because of the nature of our societies, we're highly technical, highly technological society that values material
Mm.
and values material wealth above almost everything, which is strange, right? But
Well, they keep looking for that money to get that peak
Mhm.
experience. I'll go on that really expensive vacation. I'll go travel to these mystical places in the five-star hotels or try to force it to happen, like seeking it in a way. I think the more you seek it, the less you have an opportunity to actually experience it.
Yeah,
Because they're looking for it in things out there or even an
Mhm.
experience out there. It's more of a presence with yourself.
Yeah, and we can see the disconnect with nature just by the statistics, right? Of how most people live in cities, most people don't go out to
Mm.
other countries or camping or hiking and all that stuff, on and on. But the personal experience, of course, of our individual lives is full of these potentially peak experiences that we can tap into, that we can start to pay attention to and say, how can I take this to the next level? I always tell people, okay, so if you're studying yoga, for example, that's a profound study. It goes back thousands of years and has deep philosophical roots. Take it to the next level in any way you can, right? Just go to the next step. What is it? Learning meditation, learning pranayama, learning new techniques, traveling to India, whatever it is, follow that, right? Until it gives you its peak experience.
I remember, well, when I coach people, when I did a lot of private coaching, I still do this with our students in the groups, is I ask them, a lot of the people I worked with one-on-one, what was a happy time in your life? I would
Yeah.
try to anchor it in with a visual and like emotion, anchoring that feeling in. And what was really interesting, thousands of people I work with, and I would say the 3 peak experiences that people shared were, number 1, the birth of their child and holding that baby in the arms. So for women, that was like the big thing. And then for men, actually, was their wedding day. A lot of the men said their wedding day or when they won a, trophy or something with some kind of sports winning, I don't know, trophy. I don't know how to explain it. And then also just being in nature. I think that's like when I go to the lake, when I go into the mountains, when I was in Colorado, when I go on this one hike and I get to this one point and it's just this beautiful scene that just takes your breath away. There's two places in Colorado and Denver that going over the hill into Boulder, and you're going up that hill and down into Boulder on I think that's not I-25, but that Route 36, I think it is. And you see the mountain range, and it's just this beautiful the Flatirons. It's just like it is one of those incredible views. And then the other one when you're going over the Continental Divide, and you're just like seeing that on that highway on I can't remember the name of the highways over there anymore, but those big like wow, like connecting with nature and being in awe of the magnificence of this beautiful planet that we're on. Those moments can be really powerful too.
Yes. Yeah.
It's kinda like connecting to a deeper our soul or God or the higher self or the higher power within us when we have those experiences.
Yeah. Nature is definitely. I always think when I was younger, I traveled through Mexico and South America a lot, and I got to meet a lot of native people, and it became clear to me that when we left nature, we gave up something amazing that we don't even remember what we gave up. It was because being in those natural worlds and that frame of mind of being connected to the earth, it's something indescribable. It's something very much alive that people don't experience anymore. It's not the same to go camping or to go hiking than to be living in kind of that connection to nature so closely.
So it's
That
all like a cultural experience.
Yeah, it reveals something that you can't get in the city, right? And you
Mhm.
can't get through drugs and you can't get through pleasure. It's something so private that it reveals to you as an individual when you are there. It's one of those peak experiences.
And I think if you're like a leader or you do retreats and you want to create those experiences, you can't force it. You have to basically allow it to come when it comes. And if you try to plan it out or do these rituals and then kind of stimulate their imagination, sometimes it's not as the same as it spontaneously showing up at different times sometimes too when you're doing groups and to allow the person to have that experience going we have clients sometimes on our retreats and they'll go in and go do a hike in the morning, and that's their peak experience is just thinking of everything they learned, and then they see this beautiful bird or an eagle fly by, and there it is. So it's about not forcing it, but being open to remember it. And I know for me, when I do have those peak experiences, I hold the moment if you can hold it and just be present and just be thinking. I remember there's certain times where I said, I'm going to remember this moment for the rest of my life. I'm
Mhm.
going to remember this time. And you want to hang on to it, but then it goes away. But to be like, almost like helping you remember and anchoring it in while you're having it.
Yeah. So, why do peak experiences matter for growth? Let's see. Expansion of perception. It
Mm,
changes your perception. In other words, it changes the way you see yourself, the way you see the world, and it stays with you, like you say, right? It's something that rewires your brain. It totally rewires your brain for good.
mm.
You're a different person at the end of the experience than you were before.
Well, it's like Jung says, you experience the other than yourself experiencing you. You get to be like almost out of body in a way in those experiences. You get to have an expanded view, like you said,
Mm.
of
It can
life and
dissolve
yourself.
inner conflict and reconnect us with wholeness,
Mm.
offering insight into the deeper self, the self with capital S, right? That, I mean, that is really, if you think about what it was the purpose of meditation, or what is the purpose of meditation, yoga, what is the purpose of medicinal plants and ritualistic psychedelic plants? It is for this transcendent integration that reveals the self to you in a very direct way. That's why That's why people seek it out and have continued to seek it out. There is one theory in biology, this is an obscure one, goes back to the 60s, but it's the idea that we as apes started to experiment with hallucinogenic plants, and the plants begin to teach us through those peak experiences and transformed our mind. And therefore we're the apes that
The
play
naked
around
apes.
with psychedelics. We like to transform our minds with these medicinal plants.
And if you think about it, human race has been around for millions of years, and we evolved over so many decades of experiences and stages of evolution. And often it's the basis or the foundations for the indigenous, the tribal, that really give us the best healing, because it's like the truth was always there. And I think as modern humans have gone further and further away from our natural self, our instinctual nature, our intuition, our mystical and imagination. Now we're letting AI write stuff for us and come up with ideas versus us using our brain and being imaginative or
Mhm.
being inspired. So these peak experiences can be a turning point in people's lives that you can't really manufacture with technology. So how do we do this? How do we have more peak experiences? Like I talked about earlier, you don't want to force it. Like, I'm going to have a peak experience today. I'm going to follow
I
5 steps to have a peak experience. I think, well, for me, the best thing you can do to have a peak experience is to study like who you are and ask the questions of life and be curious about life in general. And like
mhm.
we talked about in the last episode about anxiety, to be or open to what things come. And I think having that kind of flexibility in life brings in more space for us to have those experiences versus that hyper control that most of us have in the modern world.
Yes. I mean, one of the reasons we follow the wisdom tradition of the Upanishads is because they appear to be like the oldest manual for consciousness that human beings produced. The oldest manual for consciousness, or understanding our own consciousness, that human beings ever developed or produced. There might be older ones, but they weren't written down or we don't have access to them. And so the instructions that they give are so clear on the idea that we are not perceiving reality as it is through our senses. We can't. They're not, our senses are not designed for that. And we know there's good neuroscientific evidence now that that's true. Our senses are not designed to give us a direct experience of the truth. They're designed simply for survival in a multicolored world, right? But the Upanishads insist that there is a way to perceive the truth and to experience it directly for yourself, clearly, directly for yourself, not through a teacher, not through some kind of medium, but direct experience of reality, the absolute reality.
And what is that, Dr. Rob?
Well, the
Tell us
absolute
your
reality,
secret.
it is you. Like if you ask,
Me?
yeah, who is Debbie? How is she able to live her life? It's the self in you.
I love the idea, like you had said once, that just be in awe that you're on this rock, flailing through space, clinging to this rock. You are conscious of your experience. You're able to create things in your life, have this life with all the ups and downs. Instead of looking to escape the world, it's finding it in the world without being attached. That's the caveat.
Yeah, that's right. Because uh, the Upanishads are very clear also on stages of growth, that
Mhm.
they don't expect you to just get rid of your delusions, just because you want to, that it's a practice and that it's a process of
Mhm.
going through these stages. And what in the beginning, it begins with this idea of Maya, meaning that you're experiencing a hallucination, a type of your own projection kind of thing. Later on, it becomes that, but that hallucination itself is an expression of the self.
Mhm.
Therefore, it is the self. So it ends up that the hallucination of our world is actually looking directly at the self when you
Mm.
see it, through the lens of the absolute reality.
And I think that is what makes our Jungian coaching or our theory different than any other Jungian theories because we don't see anything as negative or positive. It's that non-dual experience. So when we think about the shadow, I would say that's the first step someone can take. Like you said, there's stages. And the shadow work is really to see that you're projecting all these things, that there's parts of yourself that you suppress and you ask why, why am I, playing, with one hand tied behind my back, like what's happening? And it's to reintegrate those things. And that I think it's not about judging anything as good or bad, and then seeing that it's all part of this one wonderful self. And I think that many of our clients say that that was the one thing that changed for them is that you're not broken and that everything's an opportunity. It gets out of that dual thinking of there's this positive energy or negative energy or the right thing to do, higher vibrations or whatever that is. We're really looking at everything as one, the good, the bad, the ugly, all as part of the self. And I think it's hard for us because most people were conditioned to see everything in that duality. And so it's about basically merging our self back to the oneness that we
Yeah.
originally were born into or born from.
Yeah. So from that perspective, then we can think of all the seeking, right, of in religious experiences, in plant medicine experiences, in pleasure, in even in creativity, in art. All these are aiming at the same thing. It's to experience that transcendent self. They're all pointing in that direction.
It is a hard concept to grasp, but the more you play with it, the more you ask like you said, the self-inquiry, and the more present you can be to those peak experiences that, oh, this is almost like you're experiencing the truth for a moment. You're getting a glimpse of who you are on a deep, profound level. Like you're seeing the world as the self sees it in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah, and that is the ultimate peak
Mm,
experience that
mm,
we're all seeking. Transcending of our limited ego self as persona, not rejecting it, right? We understand we have to take care of this body and
mm.
respect it, but that there's a deeper reality right in front of us or right within us that is always there for us. And that accessing that is the ultimate peak experience for human beings.
I love it. Well, I loved this series on emotions. If you missed any of the previous episodes, please go back and check them out. We did a lot, eight episodes. I can't remember how many, but we talked about fear. We talked about love. We talked about anger. We talked about guilt, all the fun ones. We talked about peak experiences and anxiety and surprise. So I think it's so close to our everyday experience that these past episodes are very accessible for people. So I'm hoping that you all received some insight from them and continue on your individuation journey. We always encourage you to do that. And if you have any questions, you can always visit our website. There's some links in the show notes to find out more about us. This is your first time finding us, be surprised at what we have. Lots of free resources on our website. And we're getting ready for our next series. We also love to hear from you. If you have a subject or topic you want us to touch on, Jungian psychology, Eastern spirituality, or neuroscience, let us know. We'd love to hear. And we thank you for listening to us and being open to receiving this wonderful information.
Yeah. Thanks for spending some time with us. Appreciate it.
Yes.
And we'll see
Have
you
a
next
great
time.
have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.